Hello, everybody. we, we're going to talk about numerology today. So numerology is kind of magical because you just use your name and birthday. And from it, you kind of know everything about somebody. And it's not, and it's so complete that it gives you information that the person themselves didn't even realize. So why is it so magical? What's so magical about a name? I mean, I can understand the birthday, but the name, you would think that the name was kind of arbitrarily given to you by your parents. Sometimes they name you after your grandmother or whatever. But it's really magical because for some reason, the name is actually channeled from the soul of the child through the parents, and the child always will get the name they're supposed to get. So the name that's actually on the birth certificate, that's what's used in order to determine the personality. So the personality, it's not genetic. It doesn't come from genes. It's not like the color of your skin or the size of your nose. But it's determined. Your personality is determined solely by the soul of the child. Well, that sounds pretty exciting, I would say. So what happens when you change your name? It might change maybe 20% of your birthday, of your personality, but only if you totally get away from your previous name. So it's not magical. It doesn't happen, chick-chock, okay? And what is the purpose of a reading? A purpose of a reading is to find understanding. Now, this is a big word, understanding, because most of us, we grow up with a sense of judgment. This is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. And here you find out that, hey, you don't even have control of who you are, or at least who you were born with. And let me make this clear. How you're born is not necessarily how you have to die, because everybody has free will, and you can use that free will in order to make changes. Some of these changes are more difficult, some of them are easier, but it takes an effort to make these changes, but you can. And that's really, really important, because without free will, life would be kind of a drag. I mean, it wouldn't be fun at all, okay? So this is really important. And how do we know that the personality is coming from the soul rather than from genes? Well, if you have more than one child, I absolutely assure you they are totally different. Because, I mean, certainly my own children, I know, they're totally different because they each have their own soul. So their purpose for this life has been different. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to put on a screen share. Here we go.
Goodness.
Can you see that? Can you see that? Okay. Yeah. So let me try to make sense out of all of it. So the first thing that you need to know, there are certain basic numbers, and the basic numbers are the digits 1 to 9. And every calculation is reduced to 1 to 9. We'll talk about reducing as we go along. Now, in addition to 1 to 9, there are special numbers. And these special numbers consist of master numbers, which is 11, 22, 33, and so on. And these are reduced. And here you could see how you reduce. You simply take the 2 digits, the 11, 1 plus 1 is 2, the 22 is 2 plus 2 is 4, 3 plus 3 is 6, and so on. And that's how you reduce. You simply reduce by adding the digits, okay? Now, the same thing with, there's something called karmic debts. And what is a karmic debt? A karmic debt is something you screwed up in a previous life, and now you have to pay the price. And of course, when you were born, you have no idea that what you did in the previous life, because you don't have memory of all your previous lives. But in any event, and these karmic debts are when anything adds up to either 13, 14, 16, or 19. And they reduce to 1 plus 3 is 4, 1 plus 4 is 5. And when you get to 1 plus 9, 1 plus 9 is 10. And then you further reduce it, 1 plus 0 is 1. Okay. So here, so that this is to begin with. Now, every reading there consists of 5 core energies. Now, there are core energies and there are modifiers. And think of the core energies as an analogy is, think of a photograph that's out of focus. Well, that's when you analyze the 5 core energies, so you get a sense of the personality, but it's still, it's not quite in focus. And as you apply each of the modifiers, it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. And so that the knowledge expands accordingly. Okay. Now, with these 5 core energies, 2 of them come from the birthday, and 3 of them come from the name. So, the birthday. The first and foremost, is adding the day, the month, and the year of the birthday. And what you get, the total is something that's called either the life path or the major heart energy. And this is the most important energy. And why is it most important? Because this, when we were, before we were born, we made a contract with God. This is the life that you're supposed to lead. And guess what happens when you don't fulfill that? You get a knock. And the knock could be in the form of this illness or that illness, because it's like, it's as if God is telling you, you know, get with it, get on the path. Okay, now, of course, there are obstacles for getting to that life path. And we'll talk about some of these obstacles as we go along today. Okay, so that's the first thing you have to know. The second thing, the second energy is simply the day of birth. So if you're born on the 25th of the month, so 2 plus 5 is 7. If you're born on the 17th of the month, 1 plus 7 is 8, and so on. And further down, we'll do an example, and then everything will become much clearer. Now, the birth name, there are 3 energies. And so what you do is, the first and most important is you add up the names, but you can't add letters. So you need a numerical equivalent for each letter. And we'll talk about what they are in a moment. So when you add up the names, and then you get something that's called the hands energy. What are the hands? The hands, this is a skill. This is the skill that you acquired. Energy number 4, core energy number 4, is you use just the vowels of the name. And the vowels are A, E, I, O, U in English. And in Hebrew, it's Aleph, Hey, Vav, Yud. And so adding up the vowels, you get what's called the head energy. And what does the head do? The head, this is how you think. This is how, these are your thoughts, your aspirations. And finally, the fifth is taking the consonants of the name. And the consonants are merely all the letters of the name minus the vowels are the consonants. And this results in what's called the feet energy. And the feet, this is how you appear to the world. And when you see the example, we'll put it all together. And it's really going to be a wow, I assure you. Gosh. Now, all I've done here is I've just put it in some kind of graphic form. So we have the head, we have the two hands, we have the feet, and we have the heart. I didn't draw it, put the feet twice, but that's irrelevant. Now, in addition to these 5 core energies, what we're going to talk about is one other thing which is extremely important, and that's called the key heart. The key heart. And the key heart is just taking the major heart, adding it to the minor heart, so which is the day of birth. So you take the key heart, the major heart, you take the day of birth, you add the two together, you get the key heart. And what is the key heart? The key heart, it's an energy that you had in the previous life that you seek in this life. That's something that's really important. And what you're going to see is how important it is for your key heart, when you compare it to your major heart, to see, because that could show how easily you can fulfill the major heart, or if there are difficulties. Again, we'll get to that shortly. The next thing we're going to learn today is called the stress number. It's an energy that creates stress, and it's calculated by subtracting the hands from the heart. Okay, whichever number, and it's always a positive number. Now, when you take a look at the energies themselves, and I think, and I'd like to do that now. I'd like to jump to the energies. If you have a camera, you can photograph what I'm going to show you now, so you could use it. And if you have difficulty with that, just simply send me an email, and I'll email it to you.
Thank you.
So here is the first thing. Here are the energy descriptions. So we said from 1 to 9. Now there are 2 columns. There's the balanced and there's the not balanced. So when is it not balanced? It's not balanced when any of the 5 core energies appear more than once. So if any given energy appears more than once, that energy is not balanced. And you really need to look at both the balanced and the not balanced side in order to get a sense of the full meaning of that particular energy. Okay? Now, how do these energies, so let me just give you a rundown of these different energies. Okay, so the one energy is somebody who's an individualist and a strong starter and fearless and courageous and a leader. In other words, somebody, it's a very extrovert, very masculine kind of energy. The 2 energy is just the totally opposite. It's somebody who's cooperative and needs intimacy in a relationship and sensitive, and so on. So here we have 2 energies which are totally opposite. So the 1 is extrovert, the 2 is introvert. The 3 again is extrovert, and this is a beautiful energy. It's especially beautiful because I have this in my heart energy. It's means joy of life. It's somebody who's optimistic, who lives in the now, who's open-minded and creative and friendly. So it's really, it's a very lighthearted kind of energy. And of course, it's extrovert. 4, just the opposite. Somebody who's practical and realistic and reliable and orderly. And somebody who likes routine. Again, introverted. The 5 loves freedom and change and movement and travel and it's somebody who has a strong libido. So it's a wow. It's a real, it's a totally extrovert kind of energy. The 6 is somebody who likes balance and harmony and love and family and responsibility. The 7, again, is very introverted, somebody who's serious and mature and is a perfectionist. The 8, totally opposite to the 7, dynamic, a survivor, ambitious, assertive. And finally, the 9 is somebody with a broad perspective, somebody who's idealistic, who likes to give and teach and seek justice and wants and thinks out of the box. So it's so wow. Look at what we have with these energies. There's extrovert, there's introvert, there's So what is the result of all these differences? It means that certain energies work in harmony with each other. Other energies do not work in harmony with each other. Some energies are very much not in harmony with each other. And some energies are slightly in harmony and partly not in harmony. So putting all that together, we have another table, and here it is. And this table tells you what's in harmony with what, okay? Again, if you can take a photo of this is great. So now the 0, by the way, you'll only find among Israelis. It's only in Hebrew where there are no vowels. So if you're living abroad and you're not dealing with Hebrew, you don't have to worry about the 0. But the first thing here, so all these X's, that means very disharmonious, very disharmonious. These dots means there's harmony. So the 1 and the 3, they work together. The 1 and the 4 works together. The 1 and the 5 works together. The 1 and the 6, not in harmony. Not in harmony, but not in harmony. You get the idea? So you always take the lower number with the higher number, and that will tell you what's in harmony and what is not in harmony. So now, the last thing I want to show you is the table of equivalence between the letters of the alphabet and the letters of the alphabet and the numerical equivalent of each letter. And it's, even if you don't, it's so easy to remember it because A is 1 and B is 2 and C is 3. And finally you get to I is 9, and then it starts over again. J is 1, K is 2, and R, until you get to R is 9. And very simple. And these colored, the green ones, of course, are the vowels, A, E, I, O, U, okay? And for those Hebrew speakers, well, there it is. It's really simple also because it's just Aleph is 1 and Bet is 2. It's the same thing. You just go through the alphabet and you know exactly how to interpret each and every letter of each name. Okay, so having gone through that, now let's get back to where we were before. So I summarized here. So the next thing I summarized very disharmonious. The disharmonious. First, we have the disharmonious. There are three disharmonious pairs of energy: the 1-6, the 5-6, and the 2-5. The very disharmonious is the 1-2, the 3-4, the 4-5, the 4-9, and the 5-7. And everything else is either in harmony or partially in harmony. And for the details, you could just look at the table that we looked at before. Okay, so much for theory. Now, in Hebrew, there's a word called tachlis. Tachlis means let's get with it. Let's see how this thing actually works.
Yes.
Okay, so here we have our guinea pig of the day, Fiona Jane McMillan, born on the 17th of December, 1953. So let's begin. So we said the first thing we're going to talk about is the birthday. So we have 17, and we said the first thing we're going to do is to get the major heart energy, we're going to add up the day, the month, and the year. And so we have 17, we have 12, and we have 1953. And now we reduce each one. So the 1-7 reduces to 8, the 1-2 reduces to 3, and the 1-9-5-3, if you add it up, it's 10, 15, 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. And if you add up these three numbers, you get 8 plus 3 plus 9 is 20. And 20 reduces to 2. So there we have it. So the major heart energy, life path for Fiona is a 2. So Fiona has a very soft nature and loves intimacy and relationships. Does that sound like Fiona?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now the minor heart, which is the day of birth, is totally different. It's an 8. Okay, because you're born on the 17th. So 1 plus 7 is 8. So now we have a minor heart. So we already know that the 2 and an 8, and if we take a look at the table, how does the 2 and the 8 relate? Well, it's partly in harmony and partly not in harmony.
That makes sense.
Because the 8 is totally assertive and ambitious and out there and extrovert and sexy. And I mean, it's the 2, by the way, speaking of sex, the 2 sexy numbers are 5 and 8. Okay, so now we have, so we know everything about the birthday. Now the name. So we have Fiona Jane McMillan. So here we take, and we put the numbers underneath each letter. So the F is a 6, the I is a 9, the O is a 6, the N is a 5, the A is a 1, and so on. J is a 1, A is a 1, N is a 5, E is a 5, and McMillan. So we take the M is a 4, and so on, and so on, and so on. So now what we do, we add up each name separately. So when you add up each name separately, you get the first name adds up to 27, 15, 21, 26, 27. Jane is 1, 2, and 10 is 12. And McMillan adds up to 33. Now, reducing, we get 2 plus 7 is 9. 1 plus 2 is 3. But now here we keep the 33. Why do we keep the 33? Because it's a master number. So if it's a master number, or a karmic debt, you use the karmic debt in making the calculation. Why do you do that? You do that because when you add it up, it could make a difference as to how it adds up. Sometimes, because if I reduce it, I would get a totally different two numbers that make up that 9. It'll still come out to 9, but that has meaning, which I'm not really going to go into in detail now. But sometimes it could come out to a karmic debt or a master number. So it's always necessary to not to reduce the master number or the karmic debt. Okay, now let's go on. So we have vowels. So in Fiona, there's a 9, a 6, and a 1. So it's 15. So here, 9, 6, and 1. In Jane, there's a 1 and a 5 for the vowels. And Macmillan, there's a 1, a 9, and a 1. So now we have 15, 16. And you see, I keep the 16. I don't reduce the 16 because the 16 is a karmic debt. And 1 plus 5 is 6. And 1, 9, and 1 is 11. And that adds up to 33 on 6. And here I keep the 33 because the 33 is a master number, and that has special meaning. So, but the basic energy, however, is 6. So that's how you think. So you're very soft and sweet and nice. So, and remember we had the 2 in the heart. So you have the same, this 2 and 6, by the way, are very much in harmony. And both of them have to do with love and balance, and 6 means also aesthetic and so on. And now finally the consonants. And the consonants are just taking the 6, F is a 6, N is a 5. So we have 6 and 5. Jane, J and N is a 6. And this is from Macmillan, a 4, 3, 4, 3, 3, 5. And that reduces to 11 plus 6 plus 22. Now, what I suggest you do, and that totals to 39, and 39 is 3. 3 plus 9 is 12, and 1 plus 2 is 3. So there we have it. Here are 5 energies, and here I've illustrated them. So you have a 6 in the head, a 2 in the heart, a 3 in the feet, and a 9 in the hands. Now, one other thing I want to point out is that the vowels and the consonants always have to equal the total. And so I always check that. So here, for example, the first name there's a 16, and 16 plus 11 is 27. 2 plus 7 is 9. And here it is. Here's the 9. You see? In the total. The second name, there's a 6, and a 6 is a 12. 1 plus 2 is 3, and here's the 3. And here I have 11 and 22, and that adds up to 33. So I know I didn't make a mistake. And believe me, that's really important because you don't want to make a mistake. I mean, that's the one thing about these calculations. You got to get it right, because if you don't get it right, you're talking about somebody else. I mean, so there's not much leeway here. Okay, so this is what we have. So, and the key heart, so we said the minor heart is 8. We've already talked about that. And the key heart is 10, is 2 plus 8 is 10, 10 over 1. And by the way, I'm not going to go into it now, but 10 also has special meaning. And the stress number is 9 minus 2 is 7, here, which is 9 here is the hands, 2 is 8. Now, let's talk about that. Let's see what all this means. So when we take the 6 and the 3, the head and the feet, when we look at these two together, so are these two numbers in harmony or not in harmony? Well, it so happens they are in harmony. And what does that mean? The 6 and the 3, when they're in harmony, it means that when you have thoughts, it's easy for you to express those thoughts. You don't have any trouble. There's no hesitation. Okay? So that's the first thing that this tells you. Okay? Really important to understand. The second thing we look at is we look at the heart and the feet. So the heart, these are your feelings. And so when you compare these two numbers, what you find out is how well can I express my feelings to strangers? And it also means the beginning of an intimate relationship. It's easy? Is it some difficulties? So the 2 and the 3 are partly in harmony and partly not. So that means it's not totally easy for you to express what you're feeling. Now, there are other things. We're not going to have the time now to get into what's called patterns. It's a very, very important thing. And one of these patterns has to do with choking. So, and if you find that if there is a choking pattern, meaning heart is choked and that you can't express your feelings regardless of what these two numbers, what the heart and feet will show. So, but as I said, we're not going to get into it now. Okay, so we have this. Now there are other things. This is how the head is how you think, and the 9, that's your skill. Okay, so is there a coordination between the way you think and your skills? Well, in your case, Fiona, the answer is yes, because the 6 and 9 go very well together. So that isn't a problem for you. Good. So now what I'd like to do, oh yes, okay, so, and the key heart is 1. Now, the key heart is 1, and the main heart is 2. So here, there's a problem. There's a problem because these two energies are extremely disharmonious. So there's a conflict between what it is, what you'd like to, you desire to, what you desire to achieve, and what your heart needs to fulfill. So it means an obstacle. It means that this is an obstacle for achieving this 2 energy that you have in your heart. Okay, so the 8, which was the minor heart, is also a partial obstacle, but having the 1 as a key heart is a far more intense obstacle for achieving it. Now, the stress number. So the stress number is a 7. So what is the 7? The 7 has to do with using your head. It has to do with being a perfectionist. It has to do with study, researching. So there's stress around it. So I would probably say that you probably don't really love, you probably didn't love to go to school, or you didn't love, you you don't really love to go deep and research and that's not really your strong point. Does that sound right?
Yes, in a way, yeah.
Okay, so that's for your stress number. So now we're going to do one more thing today, and it's something that's called intensities. Okay.
Okay.
Now, what it is taking the name, remember back here, the name, and and adding up each of the numbers in the name. So if I add up the ones, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5 ones.
Oh.
And twos, there are no twos. There are 3 threes, 2 fours, 4 fives, 2 sixes, no sevens, no eights, and 2 nines. Okay, so that's what is. Now the question is, what does it mean? Okay, so let's start. So number one, for the number one to be balanced, there should be 3 ones. So what happens if there are fewer than 3 ones? Fewer than 3 ones, so you know that it's hard for you to make decisions. Now this is, speaking of decision making, what I wanted to know is that only the minority of people are able to totally make decisions. It's one of the most, seems to me, one of the most difficult aspects of personalities, decision making.
I agree.
So if there are fewer than 3, so this already shows up here. But of course, and there are other ways of seeing that, lack of difficulty with decision making. Now, what happens if there are more than 3? If there are more than 3, it means that your ego needs a lot of attention, that you focus inward, that you need to be appreciated and loved and uplifted. And what's the consequence of it? The consequence of it is very often, for many people, it drives them to achieve. Because when you achieve, then everybody says, well, Fiona, that's wonderful. You're great. You get my drift.
Sure.
Okay, so that's the 1. Now the 2, a balanced 2 is 1. If there's 1, 2. If there are no 2s, that means you don't, maybe there's certain things you don't always pay attention to detail. So maybe if you go to a shopping area and you look at all the shops and somebody asks you if there's a bookstore, you didn't even, you kind of got the general idea of what's at this shopping center, but you didn't really notice or pay attention to the fact that there's a bookstore. I mean, it's just one example.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound?
Yeah, yeah.
That sound about right.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if there are more than 1, 2 or more 2s? Well, then it means sensitivity. It means detail oriented. It means paying attention to detail. Now, what happens if there are 4 or 5 2s? And sometimes I actually run into that. Well, if there are 5 2s, or even sometimes even 4, it means a person is so sensitive that tell them almost anything that makes them feel uncomfortable, and tears start to roll out of their eyes. I mean, it could really be intense. Okay, 3. So if it's either 1 or 2 3s, it's balanced. If it's 3 or more, it means you have some kind of a talent, some kind of expressive talent. It could be in writing, it could be art, it could be music. And Fiona, looking at that background photo, background picture in your house, there must be something relative to art that you're connected to. But it could be
Visual.
music,
Yes, visual.
could be dancing, could be anything. Okay, 4. 4, 1 is balanced. If there's more than 4, it means hard worker. Not necessarily smart, but hard worker. And what's very interesting about the 4 is that there are certain names that come up that really have a lot of 4s. And do you know the most frequent name on the planet, Mohammed. Mohammed, there are 4 4s in Mohammed.
Oh, goodness.
So all these Mohammeds, they're really hard workers. So it's quite interesting.
Very.
5, either 3, 4, or 5 5s are in balance. So your 4 4s are in balance. Now, what happens if there are fewer than 3? Fewer than 3 5s means difficulty making changes. It means not being as flexible as you can be. It means that the energy is stuck. When you need to make changes easily, it just doesn't flow. Okay? And when there are more than 5, then there's an excess. 6, either 1 or 2 are in balance. If and you're 2, that means nothing to talk about. If the 6, if there's 0, if there are no 6s, and we haven't really gotten into a full discussion of when certain numbers don't appear at all, when there's 0, because these are called karmic lessons, and there's a whole discussion of karmic lessons, which we're not going to get into today. In any event, when there's no 6s, it means that you're probably going to need to take care of somebody in your life that needs taken care of. And when there's more than 2 6s, then it means responsibility, that you really take on a lot of responsibility. 7, when either 0 or 1 are in balance. When there's more than 1, it usually means that you keep your feelings inside. So regardless of what your core energy show, if there's more than 1, I know you're having difficulty in getting your feelings out. 8, 1 is imbalanced, and 0, well, if there's no 8s and there's no 8s in your core, but Fiona, you have an 8 in your core, so it doesn't apply to you. But if there are no 8s in the core and 0 8s in the name, what it means is that you don't focus on money. That you focus on everything else. You focus on what you want in your life, but money, as long as you have enough money, you'll always be okay. Okay, and 9 is either 2 or 3 are in balance, and so your 9 is in balance. If there are fewer than 2 9s, if you have fewer than 2 9s, well, that means you don't pick up what other people are feeling. That doesn't mean you're not caring. It just means you're not picking up what they're feeling. If there's more than 3 9s, it means you have some kind of talent and sensitive. And when you get up to 5 9s, it means you're very, very sensitive and very, very emotional. Okay, so having said all that, so now I'm going to tell Fiona, I'm going to tell you something really, really special about you. just one thing that is gonna blow you off your seat. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Fiona, you're surrounded by 369. In other words, your head, your feet, and your hands are 369. 369s are magical. And what it means is that you'll never have to worry about money.
Really?
And you probably, I'm sure you've experienced it until now, but it's not arbitrary, and it just happened to happen. It's gonna, not only has it happened, it's gonna continue to happen. The universe will always give you what you need.
Really?
So how's that for a gift?
Wonderful to hear. Thank you. Really?
Okay.
That's really fantastic.
There is a downside. There's always a downside. By the way, to everything that there's an upside, there's always a downside. There may be a tendency for you to not distinguish between your money and everybody else's money.
Really? Okay.
But that may or may not be the case in any event, but sometimes it is.
Well, maybe in business you spend the business's money to make a business flourish.
Maybe. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. I hope you've gotten something out of it. Numerology is so much more than I've presented today, but this is, the best we could do is what we could pack into our little session.
It's been amazing.
And I hope you can use that as a tool for understanding not only yourself better, but other people. Good night and good luck.
Thank you.